Data states that the 50% of Americans have prediabetes or diabetes. 75% of adults report having at least one chronic condition. 90% of US healthcare spending goes to treating chronic diseases, many of which are linked to diet and lifestyle. The guidelines state that for decades, Americans have been misled by guidance that prioritize highly processed food and are now facing rates of unprecedented chronic disease. America is trying to solve this crisis by calling out the dangers of highly processed food. Washington has introduced the new pyramid, which includes protein, dairy, and healthy fats, vegetables, and fruits, and whole grains. It recommends eating real food, which is minimally processed, prepared with few ingredients, and without added sugars, industrial oils, artificial flavors, or preservatives. 29% Indians are overweight or obese, 11% are diabetic, 15% are pre-diabetic, and 3.4% Indian children are obese. And why won't they be? The market size for ultra-processed food sale is a whopping 3.3 lakh crore. Ultra-processed food sales have exploded by 4,000% in just 13 years. So what are these ultra-processed foods? These are your everyday chips, 2-minute noodles, soft drinks, packaged snacks, ready-to-eat meals. These include chemicals, additives, artificial flavors, preservatives, high sugar, salt, fats, palm oil. These foods are designed for profit, shelf life, and addiction, not health. A 2025 Lancet study warns that the traditional Indian diets are being replaced by industrial food driven by aggressive marketing, urban lifestyles, and weak regulation. Ultra-processed foods are linked to obesity, diabetes, heart, kidney, liver, and gut diseases. The Indian population is genetically more vulnerable to metabolic disorders. Childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes among children is rising drastically in India. India's own health data shows that the problem is on the plate. 62% of calories come from low-quality carbohydrates, while only 12% comes from protein. As a result, 57% of India's disease burden is now linked to unhealthy diet. The result is deadly. 3 out of every 4 deaths in India are now caused by chronic disease, including heart, diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure. On this issue, I am joined by Dr. Shikha Sharma, nutritionist and scientific mentor at Ranford Wellness, Dr. Swati Maheshwari, Director, Fortis Hospital, Manesar, and Dr. Parjeet Kaur, Associate Director, Endocrinology, Diabetes, Medanta Hospital. Thank you all of you for joining me. I'll start with Dr. Shikha Sharma. There are a number of issues associated here: ultra-processed food, 10 minutes delivery. But I'll start with this 10 minutes delivery, no pun intended. I know the workplace requires people to get food immediately, but I see that somehow it's really replacing the homemade food. Dr. Shikha, homemade food, homemade snacks, and it's leading to the problems which we witness and the ones I have tabulated. Is there a tort to it, as we say in Hindi?
You're absolutely right. So first thing we must understand is when we call for a 10-minute delivery, it is impulsive eating. It is not a thought through eating, it is impulsive. And impulsive decisions are mostly to titillate the taste buds or for something which is more entertaining, exciting. So first thing is impulsive eating is going up. Second thing is these 10-minute deliveries can only happen because the food is already pre-prepared and has a higher shelf life, which means it's not naturally fresh. It is pre-prepared to a certain state so that by the time an order comes, that pre-prepared is then just taken to the last level of heating, or it's not a full cooking, as you would say. And any pre-prepared food has preservatives in it. That is very important to understand because normal cooking takes time. If you go to a normal restaurant and you place an order, you will see it takes time for the chef to come back and give you that meal. So this pre-prepared in 10 minutes, how is it possible? It is already with preservatives and half done. Now the second thing is that convenience is unfortunately the biggest problem today humanity is facing. So people have stopped walking, people prefer to shop from home. Now we cannot change that really because that's the way we are all going. But however, if we are able to bring health foods and give bigger subsidies on health foods, then there is a possibility. For example, okay, ladies are working, so they, or men are working, so they cannot do a lot of pre-cooking at home. But if you have salads, or if you have foods which are like chopped vegetables, sealed packs, then it's easier to go and get that and cook that. So what I'm trying to say is the industry has to come up with more nutritious choices rather than feeding impulsive eating behavior.
Okay. Dr. Swati Maheshwari, isn't it, before we get down to the diseases, it's also a reflection of the society where entire effort has been last 100 years to create food which can last, which can be on shelf, which can be preserved, you can make them today, eat them tomorrow, which allows a lot of mobility. Hence, the local goes out, the freshness goes out. Even your fridge, what is the natural tendency? You cook the vegetable which is about to go bad in next 2 hours. That's psychology. So I mean to say it's interconnected with the way we as a society has evolved, isn't that?
Absolutely, and you're very true in saying that, because right now, if you look at Indian scenario, or for that matter, the world scenario as well, we have adopted these processed foods now into our, the nutritional basket that we have. And that is the situation because, as you rightly said, it is part of growing, it is part of evolving, where things have been simplified, where people have tried to create more convenient foods which are available so that we can put our minds to other work and do our other chores more effectively. But to the extent now that it has infiltrated so much of our nutritional health data, that now it is very, very concerning, that we really need to look back and see as to what went wrong. Actually, have we adopted too much of it, or are we not realizing that it is actually a slow growing cancer that is affecting us? Because obviously these food items, they don't affect you immediately, but over the time, as and more we consume this, and the way that you have shown the data, it is so concerning that it's a tsunami that is waiting to hit us, for that matter. Because if you look at the Indian population now, most of them have pre-diabetics, most of them have fatty liver, blood pressure has become a very common problem, and now cancers are happening at a very early age. All this is actually showing that our food pattern has completely gone haywire. And look at the kids in the Gen Z that is now consuming processed foods. It's such a fast pace. Even if you look at these various apps that are there, the consumption rate in India is super high right now. And I think that's why it is very important to talk to everybody about the bad effects of these processed foods, as to how they impact our health, how they actually are taking over all the better nutrition that we used to have, and it's all crap that we are consuming now. It is not going to help us in any way, for that matter. It is only taking us downhill completely. And I think that is what is so essential, because now parents have also become quite complacent to the fact that children are ordering food by themselves. They can order food at any time of the day. Even a late night ordering is happening, and you feel hungry even after dinner. You want to order some desserts, or you want to order more food. It has become so common in the households now. You see delivery agents running around 24/7. Any time of the day you're out on the street, you'll see delivery agents all over the street, and this is very, very alarming, and something that definitely people should look at.
Okay, Dr. Parjeet Kaur, I would like to know from you, what does this combination of sugar, fat and salt do to your insulin, pancreas, liver? That's one. And how do you define what constitutes an ultra processed food? People know there's something called fast food, but what constitutes this ultra processed food?
Right. So as we are discussing that how these processed and ultra processed food are causing diabetes, obesity and heart disease. So the basic process which starts, actually it's very long back. People get obese, diabetes years later. This is actually very gradual consumption of all these materials over a period of year that people will get the diseases. The process starts with that these salty foods, sugary foods and the processed foods containing trans fats, once they get inside the body, they cause a inflammatory state in the body. That inflammation, so our body releases kind of a pro-inflammatory or bad chemicals in our body, which causes insulin resistance. So insulin is a natural hormone to control our blood sugar levels. So when these pro-inflammatory cytokines, these bad chemicals are circulating in the body, insulin stops acting. And once insulin stops acting, that leads to...
Can you just explain to our viewers what is insulin resistance?
Yes. So insulin resistance is basically the work of insulin is to bring the blood glucose level, circulating blood glucose level inside the cells and provide energy to the cells, right? So once these cells stop consuming glucose because the insulin is not working. Why the insulin is not working? Because all these food items which we are eating are releasing certain kind of pro-inflammatory cytokines. When insulin stops working where it's supposed to work, that is called insulin resistance. And then insulin levels start building up. And that is the process which starts, this is the first process to start. And then it leads to subsequently your obesity, your heart problems, your diabetes, pre-diabetes, the fatty liver. And of course, side by side, what is happening is the obesity, the fat accumulation, and excessive adipocytes or the fat cells, which are supposed to be there under our skin, they start spilling over on your organs. So more is the fatty liver, more is the fatty pancreas, more is insulin resistant. It becomes a vicious cycle then. So this is how the gradual consumption of all these high sugary and salty and trans fats, they work.
Okay, but it's time for a short break, but I'm going to come back. We're going to decode two things. What is inflammation? A lot of people would like to know that from all of you. What is inflammation? Why inflammation is bad for your body? And the second thing which people want to really know from all of you is that what are those hidden elements which you must look at before you buy things from the shelf? The word emulsifier, what does that mean? The sort of oils which they are written. What are the words which should alarm us before we buy that pack of nice looking chocolate or noodle? What should alarm us? Should sodium alarm us? Should emulsifiers alarm us? What should alarm us? But I'll come to you after a short break.
Open it up, what do you see? A champion inside you and me. Run, sing, build, dream so high. Touch the stars, reach the sky. At Orchid School we all believe every child's born to achieve.
Okay, let me straight away go to Dr. Shikhar Sharma. Madam, what should we look out for when we pick up something from the shelf, chips, chocolates? What are the words which we should look out for, saying, okay boss, you don't buy this, this is not good for your body, it's ultra processed? Because we don't have those warnings in India.
Absolutely. I think the first thing we should definitely look out for is the saturated fat or the trans fat levels. Trans fats ideally should be 0 or at least less than 1%. So that is number one. Number two is salt and sugar is the next two things which we must look for. High salt and high sugar are directly damaging for the body. Then when we come to, then we should look at artificial preservatives, emulsifiers, and artificial flavorings. So flavorings, emulsifiers, and stabilizers, all these are chemicals. They might be called that, okay, they are class 1, they are okay for human consumption, but they're not okay for continuous human consumption. Once in a while, the body can detoxify itself, but continuous consumption of these things leads to build up to gut biome problem. Your gut gets affected, your liver gets affected, your hormones get affected. In fact, mood swings start happening in children because the gut and the brain axis exists. There is a gut-brain communication. So what is important is emulsifiers, saturated fats, trans fats, salt, sugar, artificial color, artificial flavors, stabilizers. All of them are something
we should look out for.
And of course, ultra-processed fructose.
Ultra-processed
corn syrup.
Okay.
Yeah, corn syrup. So,
So-
which any ultra processed corn syrup or anything would also be something which is not good for the body.
Okay, so this brings me to another question. Dr. Swati Maheshwari, these are the foods which we can buy on the shelf, so we know what is written. But what about the food which is being made on the street?
Absolutely. I think the same goes for it. And that's why, the government step in is so much more essential because, like, see, it's very difficult for a layman to understand what are emulsifiers, what are the balancing agents that have been used or the extra artificial sugars. And because, now they don't mention sugar as such. There are so many thousand other names, deceptive names that they have resorted to, which are mentioned on the packets. And it's very impossible for any person actually to decode them and understand as to whether this is healthy or not. And similarly, it is for the street food as well, because the kind of oils that they use, the reuse of the oil continuously, the kind of different chemicals that they use, which are sourced from, we really don't know from where, as for that matter. So all that is kind of a lot of adulterated substance also, which is there in these food items. But it's actually the government that needs to step in. There has to be a clear labeling on all these food items that we pick up from the shelves as to what actually are we picking. Are there warnings on those? Are these guidelines there that you have to mention it in very simple terms rather than these complicated chemical names that are there which people don't understand as such? Even if I go to the market for that matter, I'll get decepted. There'll be so many things in the market which even I won't be able to decode for that matter. So what can we expect from anybody on the street or, a layman person as to who was going to buy all these different food items for their children, for their family and all? So the government has to make it sure that these food items are labeled. The things which are very harmful should be highlighted so that, people can make this choice. Okay, this is already marked in red.
Dr.
Should we
Swati,
buy
what
it or
does
not?
this ultra processed food actually do to your body internally? Can you tell this to our viewers, which leads to all these issues, obesity, cancers? करते क्या मतलब, what is the first thing they do when they enter your body?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, see, I'll come back to what you were mentioning earlier, and that is inflammation. So, now what is inflammation? Inflammation is actually the protective mechanism of the body. So, anytime you're hurt, you're burnt, or you have a fracture, or we have fever or anything like that, that is all inflammation that happens in the body because it is like the immunity system of the body which is trying to protect the body. So, for a short term inflammation, it is good, it is purposeful for the body, it is for the healing purpose and all. But if this inflammation becomes chronic, that is, it is there on a daily basis inside our body, then it starts eating up our organs, or to say, in other words, is to start having all these different problems over the time, like obesity, diabetes, cancer, arthritis, mood swings, so many other things, because now the organs are constantly in form of they are in a solution or they are in blood where there are a lot of such harmful materials which should have got eliminated, but they are still persisting. So whenever we eat these ultra processed foods, they cause inflammation in the body in the form of hormones they release, the insulin resistance they cause, the different kind of chemicals that are already there which should not go into our body in a certain proportion, but they are actually going because of these processed foods. So not our body is not able to kind of detoxify them at that fast pace, or there are certain chemicals which our body can actually completely not detoxify them at all. So these substances start accumulating in our body, they start hampering our immunological system, they start causing inflammation in the body, and all this eventually leads to a disease. It is like a fire alarm in the body which forgets to switch off. So the body is constantly under a fire alarm, and slowly all these organs, they are attending to that fire alarm, but over the time they run out of it because they can't be doing life saving all day. The organs can't be working at that pace all day, and that is why
Okay.
they eventually wear off.
Okay, so Dr. Parjeet Kaur, there can be a lot of things involved, but is the spike the real issue? Is the glucose spike the real issue which these foods cause, Dr. Kaur? Is that the real issue which causes each and every other thing which we have been talking about?
Okay, so glucose spike is actually one of the consequences of the insulin resistance. It's not always the glucose spike which is causing the problem. The problem is actually the insulin resistance itself.
Okay.
So initially what happens in the insulin resistance, when insulin is not working, obviously glucose will start spiking because blood cells are not able to take it up. But then our body pancreas cells are good enough to release more and more insulin so that spikes are not there. That is eventually when those pancreatic beta cells are exhausted, then the glucose spikes coming up. So that comes very later stage. So initial stages, we actually will not find. In fact, many people who are pre-diabetic, they will have low blood sugar levels because insulin levels are so high. They're more prone to get hypoglycemias, and that drives them towards more hunger and cravings for these items. So actually, that becomes a vicious cycle. More they eat this, more is the insulin resistance, more they want it. So this is actually a long process when we get a glucose spike. The most important is the inflammation which start happening in the very early phase, and then spilling of the fat in the. So that's very important to understand that as we Indians, the obesity, the moment we start having abdominal obesity with these items, that itself reflects that we are having insulin resistance. So this is the process.
Is it reversible, madam?
Definitely, it is reversible to much extent with a good lifestyle. If we change our diet, if we start exercising, we can prevent ourselves from developing diabetes, obesity, heart disease. This lifestyle modification definitely has a huge impact here.
Okay, before I close the show, this question is very close to my heart. India is a very complex society, but one thing binds us, that is Shikha, carbohydrates. I started my show, there's a pyramid which is like dairy, protein and all that. And on top of it, there's a large section of the population which is vegetarian also. If you look at the best, street foods, pav bhaji, batata vada, carbohydrate on carbohydrate, on carbohydrate. So I mean to say, how does India get out of this carbohydrate picture? We are addicted to wheat, rice and carbohydrate.
So just before this program, we had a program on global warming, right? And it said that drought-resistant agricultural products are ragi and millets. So if we shift to millets, it has lower glycemic index, and it's better for the environment, it's better for for global warming, and also it is better for the soil because there's crop rotation. So wheat and rice are having the maximum chemicals. They are more prone to drought. So if we shift to millets, they are low glycemic index. So even if they are carbohydrate, but they're not so damaging compared to wheat or rice with so much pesticides and high glycemic index. So that
but Shikha, the problem is the people are eating processed millets, I have noticed that, when we say you eat millets, I realize that people are eating processed millets. There's a word in Hindi called choker. There is no choker in the grain you are getting in your house. It's as good as processed wheat.
Absolutely right, and you really picked the right point. So what we have to do is we have to have better recipes for cooking millets rather than following the same recipes what we do for batata vada and for samosa and for all that. So we need more recipes today for delicious eating and healthy eating of millets.
Delicious eating and healthy eating. Dr. Kaur, what do you suggest your patients when they come to you? Because this is something which you must be confronting every time.
Yes, definitely. Every day we are facing this challenge of carbohydrates. So, see, the problem is we cannot eliminate wheat and rice entirely from our diet. So, advice goes always in the restricting the portion size of the carbohydrates. And I always advise my patients to follow a plate method if possible, where half of that should be full of vegetables, 1/4 should be your carbohydrates. And preferably a complex one. If you can replace it with millets, why not? But even if you cut down your portion today of even the simple carbohydrates, that itself will make a lot of difference, and 1/4 should always be protein. So balanced diet with the less carbohydrates can also work.
Okay, thank you. I've really run short of time. Thank you all of you. Yes, carbohydrate is a big issue, but then the point is, the bigger issue is our ability to access food all the time, and now access ultra processed food all the time, and I think that's the bane of all issues. So this is all I had on Point tonight. I'll see you again on Monday at 7 p.m. Thank you and good night.
नफीस जी 45 साल की उम्र में हार्ट अटैक से अचानक चले गए। टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस के पैसों से उनके बच्चों की पढ़ाई में सहारा मिलेगा। पॉलिसी बाजार ने क्लेम के वक्त फैमिली का पूरा साथ दिया। पॉलिसी बाजार पे 1 करोड़ का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 400 रुपए महीने से शुरू।